Chapter 9, Section 9.1. Today's goal is using dot plots to answer statistical questions. First thing I need you to do is in your notebook, put this vocabulary in there. Statistics is the science of collecting, organizing, analyzing, and interpreting data. A statistical question is one for which you do not expect to get a single answer. Instead, you expect a variety of answers, and you are interested in the distribution and tendency of those answers. Recall that a dot plot uses a number line to show the number of times each value in a data set occurs. Dot plots show the spread and the distribution of a data set. That needs to go in your notes, pause, and write. Now think about the answers to these two questions. First of all, how many times have you eaten pizza in the last month? Write a number or just think of a number. And number two, have you eaten pizza in the last month? Now one of these questions is a statistical question. The other one is a survey question. Think about which one would be a survey question. Is it how many times have you eaten pizza in the last month? Or number two, have you eaten pizza in the last month? The question that's a survey is, have you eaten pizza in the last month? How many times have you eaten pizza in the last month is a statistical question because you have to collect the information or the data, organize it, and interpret it and analyze it. So you think about it this way. Can I make a line plot, or in this case, they call it a dot plot, which is the same thing. Can I make a line plot or a dot plot with this information? If I have a yes or no question, I can't do anything with it. All right, so the statistical question is, how many times have you eaten pizza in the last month? Okay, in this one, we're saying, what is the weight of a mouse? Is this a statistical question? Yes, you're going out there and you're asking people questions. What is the weight of a mouse? They're going to give you different answers based on what they think. So I can make a line plot. I can organize the information. I can analyze the information, and I can interpret the data. Is this a statistical question? Yes, and that's my reasoning. All right, take a look at the line plot that they put together for this. Now notice a couple things. When you're reading this line plot, you look for certain things. This red circle right here is around information that's really close together. It's all within the same 18 to 22. So this is where your cluster is. This is most of your answers right in here. Obviously your peak is the one that has the most answers. And then here you have a gap. 3 people thought that the weight of a mouse was either 27 or 28 grams. Everybody else clustered right here. So you have to remember when you're looking at your data, you're looking at this kind of information. Where's the highest or the most amount of answers? Where's my cluster? Where's the majority of answers on my line plot? And where do I have a gap? One of the things to remember, and that's a common error in drawing a dot plot, is that when people make them, they jump from 23 to 27, like they'd put 27 right here, because they say there's no information between these two. Well, technically there is. Technically there is. I realize nobody answered the information, but this is where it tells you where the gap is. And you'll find out later on that if I put this information right here, then it looks like all my data is clustered together, and it's not. There's a gap. So you do have to put in the zeros that are in between on the dot plot. Okay, Next, you're going to take a look at this information right here, and you're going to answer the questions. And then when you're done doing that, come back and I'll give you the answers using the information that we just talked about. Okay, the first question for you is this a statistical question? It is a statistical question, so the answer is yes, because you can anticipate that the weights of the students will vary. In other words, you know that people are going to give you different information and it can be put on a dot plot. Now, here it says display the data in a dot plot, identify any clusters. We're going to take a look over here, move this back. Okay, so this is what your dot plot would look like. You could have also drawn like they did in the example right here. You could have done your circles and your lines. Preferably when you get to the on your own, we're going to ask you to write it out. But if you circled it for now so you can see it, I have no problem with that. So your cluster, hang on here, let me get a pen. I hope. Okay, oops. Okay, here's your cluster right here. That's your cluster right there. It's around the number 92. There is a peak, and your peak is right there. Right here's your peak. And there are gaps, okay? You've actually got two gaps in this piece of data. You've got a gap right here, and you've got a gap right there. So you have a gap between the beginning data, middle, and between the middle and the end. I didn't give you letter C, so you don't have to worry about that. Okay, the next thing I want you to do is the on your own, and that is on page 392 in your book, and come back for the answers. Okay, on the on your own, your first question, is this a statistical question, and explain? Yes, it's the statistical question because you are asking for information and the answers will vary. So it is statistical information. And B, display the data in a dot plot. Identify any clusters, peaks, or gaps in the data. Now your dot plot could have started at 56, and it usually that's where it starts, is where the number begins on your information, and it can end at 64. You do have to make sure that you are doing a continuous number line. There must be arrows on either side of your dot line. And your identifying things would be your numbers are clustered around 60. Okay, or you can have a circle, but you're clustered around 60. You've got 2 to the left and 2 to the right of 60. Your peak is 60, and then your gaps are between 56 and 58 and 62 and 64. And C. And then you're going to answer the question, and C says use the distribution of the data to explain the question. And the answer would be most of the people who retired early were about 60 years old. Okay? So if you need to look at the answer, it is in the on your own in the answer book. Okay, let's move on to example 2. Before we go into example 2, I wanted to do a review on Celsius and Fahrenheit, and the formulas for Celsius and Fahrenheit are right here. These are your formulas that you need to use. Celsius equals Fahrenheit minus 32. Notice it's in parentheses. PEMDAS, you do that first. The formula for Celsius then would be Fahrenheit equals, and you can go straight across because multiplication comes before addition and subtraction anyway, so you're in the right order. Fahrenheit equals Celsius times 9/5 plus 32. So normally, every time you figure something like this out, you use a calculator. Here's some examples on how to figure it out if you need it. The written explanation, just like in the book, when it explains formulas to you, it's set up the same way. So if you would take a minute and write in, these are the Fahrenheit temperatures, and if you would write in the Celsius temperatures for each of these and come on back when you're done. Okay, there are the answers for your Celsius. Also, if you want a little more information and a little tidbit of extra challenge for you, here's a little thing here. It says at what temperature are Celsius and Fahrenheit temperatures equal? And it tells you a way to figure that out, which is kind of neat. If you'd like to read through that, that's up to you. Okay, let us move on to example 2. Okay, the situation is you record the high temperature every day while at summer camp in August. Then you create the vertical dot plot. So this is just like your dot plot with the continuous line, but it's vertical. So your numbers are here. And the recording of how many days at each temperature is to the right, just like if we laid this whole thing down, but it is vertical instead of horizontal. The one thing in this question is, it says how many weeks were you at summer camp? So if you look at your information, all you have are the number of days represented by these dots. Okay, so you have the information. You were there. If you count these all up, you were there 28 days. Okay, now we have to convert days into weeks. And a way to do that with this formula is you were there 28 days. You convert it by saying 1 week is the same as 7 days. Then in this case, you're going to remove what's familiar. So days and days go together, which gives you a negative. They go away. You can get rid of days. Because if we looked at this, another way to look at it, is 28 days as this is the same as 28 over 1. So now again, I'm going diagonal, getting rid of days and days. Then all you're doing is 28 divided by 7 equals 4. The only label you have left is weeks. So you have 4 weeks. You converted days into weeks. Okay, so it says, how can you collect this data? What are the units? All right, so you have to decide, again, don't forget, you have to know if this is Fahrenheit or Celsius. These are the number of days. And then the question, in the question, it wants you to answer in weeks. Okay? So, if you take a look at it, it says, write a statistical question that you can answer using the dot plot. Then answer the question. A statistical question is possibly, what is the daily high temperature in August? The daily high in August. So every day is going to be a different temperature. Obviously, there are going to be some days that are the same. So that could be a question that they asked. Um,